everyone, dear friends. In the subtitle of The Secret Doctrine, H.P. Blavatsky describes Theosophy as the synthesis of religion, philosophy, and science. In our ITC program, we have separate presentations on these three disciplines, but in truth, they cannot be separated. They can be considered as the three phases of Theosophy, or three entrances to the heart of Theosophy. And in this presentation, we will try to outline the role of philosophy in the theosophical synthesis. Philosophy, and perhaps especially modern Western philosophy, is associated by many with difficult or artificial concepts and sometimes far-fetched intellectual reasoning. When a question is called philosophical, it can even mean that it has no real connection with everyday life, that it is a purely theoretical issue with little practical consequences. Of course, this is not at all how we see the role of philosophy in theosophy. Theosophy certainly is the most comprehensive and universal philosophical system. It gives fundamental universal principles, above all, the three fundamental propositions as we find them in the Secret Doctrine, on which a coherent and logical framework is built, or rather, it flows forth from these principles. That means that theosophy is intrinsically coherent, and that we can reason logically from those principles, of which boundlessness and unity are the most fundamental. And we, as humans, are not placed outside this framework, but we are an integral part of it. Concepts in theosophy can be abstract to us. They can be about principles and laws, but they cannot be regarded as disconnected from concrete beings such as ourselves. This universality and coherency makes that we can think along the lines of analogy if we want to gain insight in the laws that govern the universe. This means that if we want to find a truth or a law, we should be able to find it in ourselves. And if we think about it, only we ourselves can really understand a truth or a law. And if we find truth in ourselves, we can recognize this in the whole, in the universe as well. This all gives us a fantastic toolbox to understand life and to understand all of life's questions we may have. In this presentation, I would like to address the following questions. What is philosophy of theosophy? Why should we practice theosophical philosophy? And how do we practice it? According to a well-known etymology of the word philosophy, it is usually defined as love of wisdom. It refers to an attitude that reaches beyond mere opinion, an openness or longing or willingness to learn and grow in wisdom. It means leaving personal opinions for what they are and trying to find what is true. And there is no better example of such an attitude than Socrates. In Plato's dialogues, we can see him questioning commonly accepted opinions and investigating ideas such as justice, wisdom, love, and knowledge. It is an impersonal and systematic way of reasoning, the activity of the higher aspect of manos, the impersonal use of the intellect. Socrates was called wise because he was aware that he knew nothing about the subject, which only means that he was not bound by fixed definitions and preconceived notions, but he was open to receive the deeper meaning. And this attitude, of which wonderment is a vital aspect, is indispensable if we want to understand more about the world around us and about ourselves. Blavatsky, in an article in the first edition of the Theosophist, invites searchers for truth and independent thinkers to join the Theosophical Society, no matter what their present opinions or beliefs are, as long as they are willing to inquire and willing to reason along the lines of logic and analogy. everyone who is willing to set aside their personal opinions and has an open mind is welcome. Clearly, she must have thought that such men and women would be receptive to what her teachers had to offer. In a footnote in the collected writings, Blavatsky gives an alternative, esoteric etymology of the term philosophy. The context is an article about the origin of the mysteries. And in this footnote, philosophy is not defined as love of wisdom, but as wisdom of love. The word love here refers to a primordial principle in divine creation, an abstract desire in nature for procreation, also called eros or potos in Greek. Love here stands for divine love, a universal element of divine omnipresence spread throughout nature, which is at once the chief cause and effect. These descriptions use very fundamental concepts of theosophical cosmogenesis. When called abstract eros or potos, it seems to point at the primordial force when it is still latent in cosmic thought. And once this force becomes active, it is the propelling force that makes differentiation possible, that makes that beings can flow forth from one another, from high to low, from further to lesser evolved, and form the manifested universe with all its variety of grades of beings. And at the same time, this force, called Fohat in Tibetan, keeps them connected and ordered with each other, guided by divine ideation. When it is called a universal element of divine omnipresence, this divine love can be associated with what is called Avalokiteshvara in Buddhism, which is described in many ways, but perhaps the way Godfried de Perucker says it, the entitative Buddhi of cosmic karma, or boundless love and compassion, is the most appealing in this context. To explore this esoteric, universal meaning of love a little further, I would like to refer to a few very inspiring descriptions. Godfried de Perucker describes love as the cement of the universe, cosmic harmony that permeates all things, and the very heart of all that is. And in The Voice of the Silence, Madame Blavatsky says about compassion that it is the law of laws, eternal harmony, the law of love eternal. From all this, we can see divine love as the binding element or universal force that is present in everything and constitutes the one law of the universe. Let us continue with the footnote. Filosofia, or wisdom of love, meant attraction to and love of everything hidden beneath objective phenomena and the knowledge thereof. It meant the highest adeptship, love of and assimilation with deity. And knowing this divine love, a philosopher is one who knows every hidden thing in things visible, cause and effect, or absolute truth. She calls philosophers scientists and the highest adepts, and philosophy a real science. The reason for this is that philosophers, in this most profound meaning, have knowledge of divine love through their own experience. They have become expressions of this divine love. As Plato said about the true philosopher, to really know something is to be something, to have become it. And here we see that in this deepest meaning of the words philosophy and philosopher, religion and science are included. As Blavatsky writes in her summing up of the first 7 chapters, the secret doctrine is the accumulated wisdom of the ages, verified and tested by those progressed individuals who were able to do so, members of the hierarchy of wisdom and compassion. The foundation of Theosophical philosophy is a principle that cannot be known or named. It can only be described as an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle. In the manifested universe, it can be understood as the fundamental law, the one homogeneous substance principle, the one radical cause, the omnipresent reality in the manifestation. It is latent in every atom, and it is the universe itself. Although the manifested universe is an illusion in comparison to this principle, because it is temporary and transitory, it is a periodical manifestation of the ultimate reality behind it. So everything in the universe is alive and developing progressively from within, from the smallest atom being to the vastest galaxy being. And this means that everything is conscious, and that there is no dead matter or blind law, and the whole cosmos is guided, controlled, and animated by almost endless series of hierarchies of sentient beings. Ultimately, it is the one life that expresses itself in a multitude of beings in different and varying stages of development. Because the human being is a microcosmos, it is possible to become aware of that oneness, but only if we raise ourselves, our consciousness, to the characteristic of those highly developed spiritual beings who are called the Anshoans, or Devas, or Elohim. Those beings cannot be appeased or commanded, but, as HPB states, by paralyzing his lower personality and arriving thereby at the full knowledge of the non-separateness of the higher self from the one absolute self, man can, even during his terrestrial life, become as one of us, referring to those spiritual beings. If too much attention goes out to our personal aspects, our personal preferences, our personal hang-ups, what we think we already know, then we cannot really be receptive of this knowledge, because we are not able to experience it. But if we manage to open up to our higher aspects, we can tune in to the wisdom that flows forth from the heart of the universe. The ancient wisdom has been described by Blavatsky as an emanation of the divine principle, and thereby it points at something that is already within us. We can recognize here the buddhi aspect of our thinking, buddhi of manas, which enables us to see the unity and the interconnectedness behind the manifold appearances. It is capable of seeing the causes of the outer events and the connection between events and facts that appear to be disconnected, and to understand what is behind them. And because of this understanding, it is typically accompanied by a deep sense of ethics and compassion. In short, Theosophical philosophy is about love of wisdom, the openness to truth, and the activity of the impersonal intellect. And in a deeper sense, it is wisdom of love, knowledge about what is behind the surface. Ultimately, spiritual unity, law, coherence, and interconnectedness. And this leads us to the ethical implications and our second question. Why should we practice wisdom of love? Even in everyday speech, we call someone wise when they know how to act in the general interest in a certain situation, in a way that benefits everyone concerned, by doing or saying or suggesting something that gives more insight, relieves tension, or calls to action, as if they know how to harmonize the situation and inspire the people concerned. When we observe the misery in the world of today, not only national and international conflicts, but also the deprivation, personal anxiety and depression that many people suffer from, It should be our goal to try to find the causes of these situations, to try to pierce behind the veil and see what really causes them, and to search for a solution or at least alleviation of this suffering. And in doing so, we shouldn't stop at the physical causes on the surface, but dig deeper. Just as a truth is not the same as enduring peace, and as the effect of the activity of our brain cells is not the same as our psyche, we cannot expect that outer changes and manipulations will change the causes, which are on the inner planes. True change can only come from within, from a change of hearts. When Blavatsky describes how the Dian-Choanic thought, or cosmic consciousness, reflects the ideation of the universal mind in directing and guiding the brute energy that is inherent in matter, she also points out the task for us human beings. She warns not to worship the Dian-Choans. No, man ought to be ever striving to help the divine evolution of ideas by becoming to the best of his ability a co-worker with nature in the cyclic task. So there is a task for us in this cosmic project. First, we must understand those ideas. If we concentrate our attention on creating a thought image based on the ideas of theosophical philosophy, we base our thoughts and eventually our actions on a vision of unity and harmony. And if we remember what was said about the one life pervading all that exists, we can catch a glimpse of what is meant by this wisdom of love. If we live according to that ideal, we act differently and are a different and more beneficent influence in the world. Then we activate something in ourselves, our higher aspects, the universal love in ourselves, which changes our thoughts, actions, habits, and eventually our characters. As beginning co-workers with nature, we learn to add no more disharmonic causes, which in the end must always be harmonized by the workings of karma. We learn to support spiritual growth, relieve suffering, and activate compassion and harmony in ourselves and others. And of course, this is not something we can do overnight, but, as Blavatsky stated, we should try to the best of our ability to become such co-workers. It is something everyone can try, however small the effort may be. How then can we be receptive to those ideas? And how can we express them? Our teachers have given many directions and hints. The first step to practice this wisdom of love is to have an open heart. Real wonder comes from within. It is the opening of the heart that yearns for more light, for truth, for wisdom. And with boundlessness as the most fundamental principle in the background of our thinking, we realize that further and deeper understanding is always possible. Therefore, we should not let our ideas crystallize and become fixed definitions, for example. We have to let go of the outer form and keep only the heart of what we have learned. Barend Voorham, in his presentation on religion, already explained that Theosophy is presented to us as an adumbration, a special outline of Teosofia, a sketch, something that needs further explication, expression, and filling in by the individual who decides to engage in it. Anyone who is attracted to it can take part in it, no matter what stage of life or characteristics. And of course, we can understand the adumbration and see the beauty of the theosophical ideas, but we should not stop there if we want to make it a living force in our lives. We have to test it for ourselves, try it, look at it from all sides and determine the worth. Real understanding cannot be given. It has to be conquered, so to speak. We should try to inquire and think for ourselves. in a logical and coherent way, based on the principles outlined in Teosofia. Keep on asking questions and try to see what it means in itself and for everyday life. Make it practical. Only then can we make it our own, each of us with our own specific character and circumstances and possibilities, each on our individual path, and live it. Based on the principle of unity and as above so below, we can reason analogically. All beings live and evolve together. There are only gradations and variations of the one life. If we conclude that, in our core, we truly are the spiritual unity, it is simple to see that actions that presume and reinforce separateness are not in line with that. If we realize that we are a microcosmos that has everything in it that the macrocosmos has, we can learn about the force behind the exterior world by getting acquainted with the force behind our own exterior form, behind our personality. If we look at the world of outer phenomena with our outer senses, we can only see seemingly separate individual beings. We need to look within, use our Buddhic imagination to recognize the interconnectedness and concentrate on the compassion, the universal and divine love that flows forth from the heart of the universe. And by thinking in this way, we become aware of unity, of interconnectedness, of the equal potentiality of all beings. We are all progressing to express more and more of that boundless core that we all essentially are. An important aspect of practicing wisdom of love is articulated profoundly by HPB in the voice of the silence. Self-knowledge is of loving deeds the child. Being an integral part of the universe, we cannot truly know something unless we become it. If we want to know the unity, we must be it, live in the unity part of our being. And if we want to know the interconnectedness, we must become it by acting upon it. And if we want to know the love of the one life that binds everything, we must practice it. As we have seen, if we want to become such, we must be self-forgetful. Forget our own personal interests and preferences, and live according to our highest insights and ideals, and be as universal and as harmonious as we can be. We need to grow ourselves. No one else can do it for us. But that does not mean that we must or even can do it alone. Neither does it mean that we cannot help each other. As the hierarchy of wisdom and compassion stretches out from the human kingdom to the solar system and beyond, from our point of view, we do not need to fear that we are alone in the task of helping the divine evolution of ideas, of becoming a co-worker of nature. There are these progressed minds and hearts that have preceded us, and they are our teachers. And as was mentioned in an earlier presentation by Erwin Bomas, it is such a treasure that they have laid down the lines so we can find our way in the multitude of theories and philosophies that are available to us now. They have also given us many directions on how to silence, or rather elevate, the personal element in ourselves. Because our motive must be free from personal desire before the heart can really understand these universal ideas, this divine love. An example of such directions can be found in the voice of the silence, in which the paramitas or perfections are given. Further, by studying and working together, we can calibrate our ideas and our ways of working. We can offer the results of our independent philosophical activities to each other and be enriched by those of our fellow students. It is like the facets of a diamond. Each shows another aspect, gives a different vista of these universal philosophical ideas. We share the ways we have found to apply those ideas in our lives. And in this way, our individual and collective vision grows, and the essence or heart of the ideas become clearer and stronger. We can help and inspire each other to be as impersonal as we can be, to receive these ideas in the spirit in which they were given, for the benefit of all beings. To summarize the answers so far to the questions that were raised in the beginning, Teosofy is an elaborate, deep and coherent philosophy, which is very much suited for logical reasoning and analogy, for those who have love of wisdom. And in a deeper sense, it is wisdom of love, knowledge about inner causes and interconnectedness, the spiritual unity behind the exterior world. And anyone who wants to make this a living power in their lives should try, to the best of their ability, to become co-workers with nature, to learn to open up to those ideas and help their evolution by perceiving and expressing them. We can do that by making the law of love our own, by thinking independently, by using our Buddhic imagination, by being it, by our own individual and cooperative effort, guided by those spiritual beings who have become living examples of it. I thank you for your attention.